I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome to the Commissioners' meeting of Monday, December 14, 2009. The first item on the agenda are the minutes of the public meeting of December 7, 2009.
Move they be approved.
I have one item
Go ahead, Ike.
to amend.
I have two.
On page 7, the very top, it says Commissioner Mahoney stated that all money received under the contract should be looked at in regard to the claim. That comment is really not accurate. What I said was, if you follow Ms. Peroni's logic, then all of the monies paid pursuant to the contract should be looked at. That is what I said. So I'd like to amend the minutes accordingly.
Second, and I'll move they be approved with that amendment.
I have two
Oh,
changes. On the bottom of page 4, the next to last word, I believe, is a typographical error and meant to be
discussed.
discussed. It might have been a Freudian slip, but I think it was meant to be discussed. I'd also like, under the new business, to add a comment that Tom Blumstrom had already approached the school district, and that the previous school board, excuse me, that's who we approached, right, Tom? Tom, was it the school board or was it the administrator?
We discussed it with school officials.
Okay, so if you could just reflect the fact that we have previously discussed that with school officials, and they have indicated that they're willing to do that, provided the township pays for it.
I'll second that motion,
All those in favor? Aye.
and then I'll move that the minutes as amended be approved.
Is there a second for that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is the notice of executive meeting. An executive meeting was held in the Powys Caucus Room in the Township Building prior to the public meeting of December 14, 2009 to discuss real estate acquisition, litigation, and personnel matters. Next are the departmental reports.
I have a question on the community development report.
Well, I'll move to be approved, first of all.
Second.
Discussion?
My first question is on page 3, and it was just something that, it was on page 3 of, wait a second, which section? Somebody paid a permit for a tent. Do you actually need to pay a permit to put a tent up in, if you have a party or something like that?
You do, it's a special event.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Right.
And then there were a series of payments made to Radnor Township under the mechanical permits and under the plumbing. On page 2 of the mechanical and page 1 of plumbing, it says owner Radnor Township, and we paid a $154 permit fee to ourselves, or is that an accounting entry, or is it a misidentified owner of the property, or I'm just a little confused. And then again, at the bottom of page 1 of the plumbing permits, it's not a lot of money, but it's confusing to me why we're showing up as paying permit fees.
I'm sorry, Kevin, I don't see that on page 1 of
I'm
Page
at-
2 of 2, mechanical, middle of the page.
I have, if it's easy, Matt, you want me to drop it off to you? I got them circled.
Radnor Township, Ivan
Right,
Avenue.
I see that. I'll investigate that tomorrow, Kevin, and get back to
Okay,
you.
and then there's the same thing at the bottom of page 1 of the plumbing permits.
Second to last entry.
Oh, for $4? Right, I
Yeah,
see
it
that.
just struck me as odd that
Right.
we're paying fees to ourselves. I mean, it may be a journal entry for accounting purposes on, sewer projects or something like that, but I just would like to understand what it is.
Okay. I'll find out for you tomorrow, Kevin.
Okay, thank you.
With those exceptions, I move the approval.
All those in favor?
Second?
Aye.
I'm sorry. We get a second?
Second, yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, next are the committee reports. Community Development. Announcement of one vacancy on the Rental Housing Board beginning January 1, 2010. Announcement of 2 vacancies on the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee.
And they'll submit their resumes to Township Manager?
Yeah, I think we announced this at the last meeting, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And the board will probably fill them early in January.
If we get applicants, so please apply.
The next item is HARB Certificate of Appropriateness 09-11 regarding Sean and Kelly Rooney, 301 St. David's Road, to extend an existing porch.
I'll move the approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is a HARB Certificate 09-12, Certificate of Appropriateness regarding 228 South Wayne Avenue to renovate existing one-story structure and add a one-story mudroom.
Move the approval.
Second.
I see Mr. Bajukas is in the back. Jeff, do you have anything to say about this, or?
Any public comment before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that completes community development. Next is finance and audit.
The first item on the agenda is the schedules of bills payable, identified as bill list number 09-12B. It's a total payment, including electronic payments, of $4,094,790.35. It says these bills have been approved by the respective department head, verified and processed by the finance department, and within the total 2009 budgetary limits. I guess I'll introduce that they be approved, and I just have
Second.
questions on a couple of them. On the disbursements coming through the park and rec open space. While I don't necessarily agree with the logic.
Page number?
It's the very last page, page 9. Of running a $20 legal expense through there. I'm not going to quibble over that, but Travelers is an insurance company, right? So why does it say legal expenses?
I think it was entered incorrectly.
Is it entered incorrectly as a description, or is it entered incorrectly to the wrong fund?
No, it's entered incorrectly as a description. It should not be legal, it should be insurance.
It should be, excuse me, Karen? Yeah, your mic's not on, so I didn't hear you.
It should be insurance expense.
Can you just help me understand is that an allocation of,
No, it's for Tom, I know you and I talked about this. I believe it's for a particular park facility.
Page 9.
very last item on page 9, Tom, it's
I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah.
Kevin, let me get back to you in the morning. I'll actually pull the bill.
struck me as odd where it was coming through.
How much did you say that was, Kevin?
$128.38, but it's identified as Travelers, which is, to me, is an insurance company.
We did pay some insurance for the kids participating in the basketball program, but I think it was more than that.
But that wouldn't
So-
seem to me to be an appropriate expense to run through a park and open space fund, which is what this is going through. I mean, that would seem to be a general fund expense. So, all right, Karen, if you can just,
I just have one quick question. I can't help but notice that the total disbursement for December is $4 million, and we typically run about $1 to $2 million per month. I just want to make sure I understand. There's, on the first page of the electronic payments, second item, it's $2 million for debt payment. Is that for bond service to pay our? Okay. And is that paid, we pay that all at once a year? Or is that paid throughout the year to different,
I believe it's semi-annual payment.
okay. And are those payments equal? Does
No.
anybody know? Okay.
Bill, do you know?
It's principal and interest. No, it's not equal.
No, I'm saying, if it's semi-annual, meaning we pay twice a year, And is it 2 million twice a year, or is it?
This is more than one payment. This is two different payments that are being made tomorrow, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, tomorrow's the date. I can get you an amortization schedule to show you exactly what it is.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is I just want to understand our cash flow through the year, and, if we're making a $2 million payment, when do we normally make that? Can it be made anytime during the year? Could it be-
No.
Yeah,
No, it's scheduled.
it's scheduled. Okay, thank you.
Anything else on that? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
The second item on the agenda is ordinance 2009-33, which is the fiscal year 2010 budget and the 2010 tax levy. So, John, do you want to kind of, or Bill, do you guys, one of you two, you guys want to quickly summarize what is here?
This will be a public hearing on the final budget. I think it was preliminary adopted 2 meetings ago. Calls for a tax increase. I think the sewer rate is the same,
The tax increase rate is,
11%.
Well, at
It's
this
been
time-
advertised, it's been on the website for a couple weeks. We're here to answer questions.
Okay. At this time, we'll open the public hearing to the public. Is there any public comment on the budget? I know we've had plenty of comment already at other meetings. Hearing none.
Public comment.
Almost made it.
Can I ask, where is this on the, one of the three, I see.
Yeah, this is the public hearing on the budget,
And
which
the
would,
tax
which would
increase.
include
No, it's
the,
not the public hearing. We had the public hearing already. This is simply public comment on the.
did we have the public
No,
hearing?
this is the public
This is-
hearing.
I thought this was the public hearing.
Yes, this is
I
public hearing.
apologize.
Yeah,
We have to have an official public hearing. We do it tonight and pass it.
right.
I'd like to speak, I see there's a capital improvement, I'm just not clear on what I have permission to comment on. What's under this, capital improvement and the budget overall?
Any expenditure of the township.
Right.
Well,
We can comment on, the public can comment on any of the budget items, including the capital, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
I'm just
Jim.
going to ask you, anybody that's going to comment on this, to limit your remarks to 5 minutes if possible. You can go ahead, Mr. Sneller.
Thank you. Jim Schneller, I live in St. David's Park on Lancaster Avenue. And I don't want to belabor the subject, but I don't believe that you're taking a close enough look at real ways of budget adjustment. And I'm going to just bring it up right away. It's the amenity of garbage removal. And the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that, and I didn't have a chance to respond, I didn't want to get up again, various people were claiming that on my block, they don't do it. Well, if there's been that kind of variability, it's probably been a function of, well, one winter they didn't pick up during a snowstorm and nobody went back. I mean, it's totally variable.
And so your position is you would like us to keep the rear door trash service in the budget? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay. Thank
Yes,
you.
because I think if it disappears, you're losing a huge amenity, and it's a perk for home sales, it's a perk for community morale, and it's something we hope we don't have to see disappear in a year that may foreshadow a year when a lot disappears. And that includes jobs. We have a duty to everybody in the township. And I think that the union jobs are just as important. And this brings me to another topic, which is, I think there are ways to save some large chunks of funds, and one of them is the comfort station at the park off of Willow. And I welcome all criticism, But I know the comfort station works, and I don't think it should be continued. I think that's a great budget balancing instant windfall. And I know Macron has not the greatest station. Nobody's getting short shrift. It's a budget crunch, and if the people on, I believe some of the people on Willow were indeed possibly not receiving the rear yard pickup, but I think it's important to all kinds of people in Radnor. I don't think it should be classified as a benefit just for people with long driveways. And frankly, when you get to with the issue of the ill and or the elderly, that certainly cuts across all economic barriers. So please reconsider it. I know it's possibly the last night, and maybe some people are itching to get it passed. But another issue is the sewer work that's being done. I don't see anything done on the second or the third phase of whatever was supposed to close South Wayne. And I know that work in the winter is very expensive. So if you can possibly get the contractors to slow down and you save some money this year, well, guess not. I didn't see it in capital improvement, or did I?
I think South Wayne's already done.
Because we haven't seen details on the real need, and we've seen general comments about storm sewers, and that might have to wait. I know that there's been a lot of details passing by my window about profits across the board. And I think the township's budget has every right and responsibility maybe to reflect the private citizens' budgets, and we shouldn't have to see any waste. So there was another expenditure also. It's looming. I hope you'll let me stand back up in case anyone else takes the time to comment and talk about it, because it's in the realm of the 150 grand for the rest station, and it too is unnecessary. And also I wanted to ask that the agendas for these meetings be posted 48 hours. I know that brings you to Friday, but they've been going up Monday. And I think the charter says notice of what's going to be
I
on
thought
the...
they were going up Friday. When did this go up?
This one actually went up Sunday. We put it on, I didn't get it on late Friday, so I came up Sunday and got it on, so it was
All right. Well,
my
that's our
mistake there.
Yeah, we should be getting these up on Friday, and we'll do that in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment during the public hearing phase of this budget process?
Ken Taylor. Perhaps it's more appropriate during the capital improvement discussion, but once again wanted to appeal to the board to attempt to revisit with Bryn Mawr Hospital the issue of the township's expenditure for the 5 Points Improvement Project. When I was before the commissioners before, presenting with the documents that indicated that in the last 2 fiscal years, Bryn Mawr Hospital alone had a net operating excess of $11 million in the last fiscal year and $30 million the year before. We discussed the fact that the improvement of this intersection, while generally for the public's good, particularly impacts that institution and its increased traffic to its new parking facilities that it's constructed as part of its redevelopment project, that the improvement of that intersection was contemplated and actually mandated by land development plans submitted in the township of Lower Merion. Lower Merion Township will have effectively a less of a cost because it does not have to acquire right-of-way that we had to affect that plan. And I would ask in a tough year like this, when we're doing extensive discussions on rear side yard versus front yard pickup, and possibly even killing comfort stations in parks. And by the way, Jim, I'm walking distance to my house, so I'd use that facility if I'm using the park. But I understand that that park is used for daytime programs for tots and and school-aged kids that are there for extended periods, and that's why I understand there's a comfort station there. I would just ask the board to go back to that institution. It's been suggested by the Commissioner for Lower Merion, impacted by this 5 Points project, that there's another institution that perhaps may be a source of additional funds to offset the potential taxpayer expense, well, the actual taxpayer expense for the 5 Points project, and that is that the Barak Academy, having relocated to the American College property, has an extensive amount of traffic coming through that intersection, both its bus traffic and its private car traffic to its facility. As you well know, it has space rented commercially in that facility. There's a sign out front saying there's 24,000 square feet available in that facility right now. Perhaps as a landlord and another institution, particularly enjoying the benefits of the improvements to that intersection, we can ask the Barak Academy to assist the taxpayers in this particularly tough year. And the idea would be whatever savings we glean from that to return it to the general budget or maintain it in the capital improvement budget for the next project that comes along that we would have to then go to bond issue for. I think it would be a good use of our time to try to revisit that having to do with the 5 Points project.
Thank you.
Sarah Pilling, Garrett Avenue. I don't want to sound like an old Victrola record, but I'm just going to say it's time to give up the backyard pickup. We need to all help share the load. And I really do believe it's the straw that's breaking the camel's back. I think it's time to get real with this. So please don't include backyard pickup.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Nina Neal. I live at 725 Church Road. I am opposed to the change in the trash service. I've been living in Radnor now for about 5 years. I have parents that live in Radnor Township. Bill, I sent you an email this past week stating my opposition to the change in the budget.
And you said you had never met me, but I did stop and talk to your husband one day.
Okay, well, I've never met you.
Okay.
I know you've been making the rounds in the neighborhood. But we have a very long driveway. My parents live on Pembroke. They live up a hill. My father's 83 with Parkinson's and a walker. My mother's 76. How they're going to get their trash down the hill on an icy night, I have no idea. I guess they're going to have to hire somebody, even though they pay, I think their fair share of taxes. I have a very long driveway, as do I know some of the people here. And last week they spoke up as well. I've got 4 kids, a 22-month-old and a 5-month-old. My husband travels a lot. How am I going to get my trash out onto Church Road? I'm going to have to figure that out. I think that we also have a very narrow driveway. I have no idea where we're going to put the trash out on Church Road. Our neighbors down the way, the Burkharts, have the same problem. We have 3 huge cans. Our neighbors also have 3 huge cans. We could potentially have 9 to 10 huge cans out there on Church Road, which I think would be a traffic hazard. I don't know how you can just all out take out the trash service. And it's sad that such a well-funded, beautiful township like Radnor is going to take away a service that I think is, if you don't have fire, police, trash pickup, and, road repair, those are the fundamentals of what a local government does. And if you start taking away those things and you start cutting back, Radnor Township is not going to be the Radnor that we all know and love if you've got, trash all over the place. And then to just wholeheartedly get rid of the whole service and not even give a moment's thought to the sick, the elderly, the handicapped, that just, that affects me personally, not just because I have a long driveway and I don't know how I'm going to do it myself, but my parents are affected by the same thing. So, and I see that there are, in the budget, if I look at the capital improvement plan, I mean, we're going to be spending, if you add all the equipment and vehicles together, this is not even counting the new fire truck, we've got over $1 million being spent on new pickup trucks. I was just looking through the whole list. I think there are 2 or 3 or 4, whatever, new police cars. Now, I understand if a pickup truck is not working, well, okay, but it seems to me that, I don't know, our police cars look pretty nice. I don't know, maybe there are a few that need to be replaced, but we're going to be spending over $1 million on new vehicles. That seems a little excessive in these times of, we're trying to be, fiscally responsible.
I would just say to you, the board is going to propose this evening a $350 fee for everyone that wants to continue the service.
Okay. That's good. Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
You're
I think that will be very helpful because I know in Lower Merion they have a $200 fee and you can have the backdoor pickup. So I think that's reasonable. Because I think there are people in the community that without this service, they just, they're not going to know what to do. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else want to participate in the public hearing portion of this budget meeting?
Hi, Nancy Fielden from South Devon Avenue. I did make a call to Bill. I hope he got it and said thank you for standing up for curbside pickup. Mr. Masterson also, and those that voted for it, our new representative, Mr. Nagel. I'm glad that you've come upon a fee. And I have neighbors much younger than myself who never take their trash out. That's their option then. If they want to go and pay $350, go ahead and pay it. But I think the board's done a great job trying to trim this budget. It's been hard, I'm sure. I'm on a fixed income like many of the senior citizens. We cut and cut and cut. I don't keep lights on. We're not decorating for Christmas. I make sure that I had a plumber there to fix a leak, put in new washers. We do all the cutting that we can. And I appreciate the board doing the cuts. And I know it's difficult. It's always difficult. But you look at all the townships around us. You look at all the empty stores. I went up Lancaster Pike. You go through going west. A lot of stores empty. Rent signs, sale signs. I'm glad that you've done what you've done. And Mr. Masterson, dry mouth, sorry. Thank you very much for your service, for having the courage to go ahead and help us. And I do appreciate Christina Peroni also, that I hope we can recoup some of the money. But thank you very much, and I have put my trash out for years. When we first came here over 45 years ago, I put my trash out, and they said, you're not supposed to. And over the years, it seemed to evolve. And in your ward, we put our trash out, and there's no problem.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and there are those little things with wheels, and you said about, someone said about a cart. One of you said about a cart.
Actually, Mrs. Pilling mentioned that.
Yes,
a couple weeks
okay.
ago. Yeah.
Yes, good idea. But I have the plain little cans, and I can even pull them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. At this point, we'll.
Thank you. My name is Jim Schneller. I live at St. David's Park. I had reserved the right to speak again, and thank you for the opportunity. I am also concerned about the intersection of County Line and Bryn Mawr Avenue. And I know that we all are aware of the fact that that intersection is not so much a dangerous intersection as I think Bryn Mawr wants to make it smoother flowing. And I don't think we should contribute a penny. I think in this year, with the tightening that's going on, a hospital is about the only kind of business that stands to gain because of goings on in the federal budget. And if they can't contribute the remainder, let them wait. And I have to also say that we have borne the weight of that intersection, and I've never seen an accident there in all my days of travel.
There's been a lot of accidents, though, Jim. In all
Do they have a
honesty,
high rate?
There are. They have. I think we had 50 accidents in the period that we looked at. They have a lot of accidents there.
Well, that was 50 on the Bryn Mawr side, or the Radnor
Thank you.
side.
They could well be on the other side. Let Lower Merion take care of it. They're
And it's
so
a
hot with the
very-
hospital.
It's a very dangerous intersection, Jim. I'd go
That's-
through it once or twice a day.
I'd like to see figures.
Well, the figures are simple. We approved this 3 years ago, and
Should have been done by now.
and Radnor Township and Lower Merion agreed to pay a certain portion. Bryn Mawr Hospital paid $600,000 plus gave us all the right-of-way on their property, and the project is done. I mean, I don't know why we're discussing it. It's over.
I watched Bryn Mawr replace a parking lot there last month. They didn't just pave over the macadam. They've got so much money, they took up 2 feet of dirt. I don't know why. Did somebody dump hospital waste under the parking lot? They carefully removed 2 feet of dirt and did the paving job that you expect to find at the Four Seasons. I couldn't believe it.
Well, maybe they did some stormwater management there.
All right, well, you
And
made
finally-
your position known.
If they, I disagree with the eminent domain. I don't know how it finally worked out, but I'm
There
just.
was no eminent domain.
Thank you.
Can we keep your comments to the budget and how they relate to the budget? These are all
Yes. Well, this is-
peripheral
I
to
think this-
that, but are you asking us not to fund that capital project?
Yes.
Okay.
I think a stern word to Lower Merion and Bryn Mawr Hospital might help us even look a little better. And as to the garbage, I have to say this because I omitted it last time. No one has said this. There are a lot of people who drive around early in the morning going to work. There are a lot of people who jog, walk the dog, exercise. We have been accustomed for 100 years to not having this. That's the whole point. 2 days a week. And you say it's 2 hours in the morning. No, it's 2 days a week. They're going to be out there. This is a terrible sightline problem that we're going to just have, and no one can really say, oh, well, you know, we want a perfect township and the place can't look like a park, but it does. We're going to suffer 2 days a week a terrible appearing Radnor, and we shouldn't lose that. It's the intrinsic value is enormous here.
Okay, thank you. At this point, with no other citizens coming forward during the public hearing portion of the budget, we're going to close the public hearing and move on to the budget documents. Ordinance 2009-33. Has that been moved and seconded?
No.
No? Okay. Somebody want to make a motion?
So just, I want to make sure, so we're going to propose this, move it, second it,
Yeah.
and then amendments.
Yes.
Then I propose.
I'll move the approval.
Second.
I would like to move that as part of this budget, we offer to the residents to have their rear yard continued at a fee of $350 per year, due on February 1st. Anybody comes in after February 1st, it would be prorated, but we like everyone to try and, that wants us to collect the rear yard to get to us by February 1st, and we'll be putting information out during January about the process we're going to follow and the changes that we're doing, the single stream, recycling, the front yard collection, and the ability to continue your rear yard collection at $350 a year.
Actually, can we discuss that topic?
Okay.
Kevin, do you want
No, no.
to comment? Well, I support, generally support that idea. However, I really would like to see this be budget neutral, meaning we can't incur any expenses above the revenues that we expect to receive from those who choose to pay for the service. The whole point of eliminating the service was to cut costs, and if we're going to incur more costs, then we're not really achieving the goal. And the point I'm trying to make with this is that by the end of 2010, we expect the fund balance to drop to 7%, and we have a fund balance policy that requires it to be 12%. But more importantly, we're going to drop down to about a fund balance of about 1.7 million. And as we saw tonight, we can spend anywhere from $2 to $4 million in a single month. So it really leaves a lot of questions open as how we're going to fund the beginning of 2011. So I'll support this motion to allow subscription to rear yard pickup if in fact we reach a certain level of subscription such that we can offset the costs associated with adding that service back in. So I'll support it, but I think come February, if we don't have adequate subscription to cover the cost of the additional personnel that are required to perform that service, then I think the board will need to abandon that process because it would actually cause us to expend more than we're budgeting for.
Well, the facts are that if we get 150 people to sign up, we probably will not be able to lay off. We'll lay off one less individual. If we get 300, we lay off 2 less individuals. If we get less than 150, we lay off the 4, and it is going to be budget neutral. So we will continue the program.
I'm supportive of this because it addresses the concern that I've been talking about for the last several meetings, and that is, what do you do about the people who are physically incapable of bringing their trash cans out to the curb? I still don't think it's a perfect solution, but there's an overriding issue here, and that is passing this particular budget now and not waiting until sometime in the new year to pass a budget, which we are permitted to do under the charter. But I think given the transition that we're going through with managers, with the situation with the former township manager, I think the last thing we want to do is to go into the new year without a budget. So I will reluctantly support this, and I'm hoping that whatever Bill Hagan comes up with will work and work on the target date and also be budget neutral, as John puts it. So I'm willing to support it under those bases.
Tom, can we get a vote on the amendment?
It's not clear to me yet. I'm reacting a little bit to your comments, Hank, because I don't know how we're going to decide that it's quote-unquote budget neutral.
The point is, I think that is simply a wish that John has, and it's probably not, I don't see how it could possibly be part of the amendment.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify, that, yes, I agree with you that it's a nice goal. Whether or not we achieve it is a whole different issue, but I think it's a fair solution that users pay for a service that they want, and I think it's something we have to look at across many other areas of what we do, that we can't constantly be subsidizing everybody. There's a certain base level of support that should come from the tax revenues, and then users should pay a higher fee of some sort across a lot of different areas. People cutting, the sports programs, paying to cut grass, library users, Channel 21, advertising, I don't know. But we cannot consistently subsidize users across everything. They have to start fairly sharing in the burden of their use.
But there's a group of people out there that we're not addressing as yet, and that happens to be those people who are physically incapable of bringing their cans out, yet are on a fixed income, much like Ms. Fielding is, who really can't accomplish it. So they can't pay the fee. So I still think that we have to address those people, identify them somehow or another, and address how we're going to make sure that their trash gets picked up. I think that's something we have to do as well.
Well, Tom Blumstrom, you, I think, run some sort of a scholarship program, I think you call it, for the park programs in the summer.
We run a scholarship program with day camps in the summertime. It's for the Radnor Day Camp program. We coordinate with the school district to discuss eligibility, falls in line with the financial needs.
And do you have a set of written criteria?
There's an application that they fill out, and then we coordinate with school district counselors in order to discuss qualifications for those scholarships, of which, they have been as well severely cut in recent years due to budget constraints.
But is that a potential model, at least a starting point, to deal with the hopefully limited situations where, you think that's
I think that it's a commissioner's decision on whether or not you want to venture into scholarships and create some criteria for that, for the trash pickup program.
I want to get back to, Bill Spingler had put a number out that if we had received 150 subscribers to this service, that we could probably not lay off one person. However, the total cost of a sanitation worker, if you put in all costs, is $73,000, and that comes out to 208 subscribers at $350 each. So I still think that as part of this motion, we should consider setting some type of a threshold, because what I would not want to see the township get into is promising a service that we can't actually deliver. And for instance, if we only had 30 or 40 people subscribe to this, would we actually be able to deliver this service? Bill Hagan, can you comment at all on logistics if we were to go down this route of doing a fee for this service, and what would happen, and you don't have to give me exact numbers or specifics, but, is this going to work if we ask you and your department to pick up the trash of, say, 50 residents throughout the township in a given week? And would that mean you would need an extra person or an extra crew, or do you need an extra truck?
I think it's all going to depend on the participation that you get in the program. I'd say a couple hundred where you have 6 runs going out. Some of your runs are going to have more on them than others, just because of the locations of the township. For instance, out on Malin Road, there's a lot of steep driveways, long driveways. You would probably have more participants out there. But what we would do is, if I thought it was a manageable number, obviously one of the things that we have to figure out is the payment and notification to me, so that I can incorporate them into the different runs that are out there. The runs have already been, I already have the runs made up for the 6 truck runs. It's just a matter of how many participants on each one of those runs would require rear yard collection. At this point, I think that we can incorporate them in the runs as they're doing their daily pickups. There's going to need to be some kind of list in there that's posted in the truck, because we do have turnover of personnel, whether it's vacation, sick, what have you, where you have different drivers in there. It's a matter of educating the drivers so that they know that they need to check this list. And most of the time, you're going to have one of your full-time personnel or one of your regular guys on that truck. Once they've done this for a couple weeks, couple months, they're going to know where their rear yard collections are. So it will get easier. I mean, there's always some bumps and change, but it can be done. And I think that it's just a matter of time. I mean, time will tell you whether it's going to work. And at this point, I mean, if it's a couple hundred houses, I don't see a problem with it working.
Mr. Fisher?
So, go ahead,
I
John.
think dispersal is important here. If they're concentrated, it may require an adjustment in the rate in the pickup schedule. But the number that I would be concerned about is if it gets over 300, that's half a truck in terms of volume. And that would be beginning to have an impact especially if the workload is concentrated. That would be an area where I think you'd start looking at a cost benefit. And then at 300, at 350, you're talking, a couple $100,000, and that would be enough, I think, to start looking at that issue. Anything under that, I think you just absorb it into the stream.
Right, I was just going to try to paraphrase what I thought I heard Bill say, that if the number is low enough, that you can
Yeah.
do it with existing resources.
Yes.
If the number gets big enough, it's hopeful that the actual collected fee would fund any potential incremental resources needed to
Yes,
serve.
that's correct. And I think the number that you get serious about is around 300.
But if you're looking for assurances that this is going to be revenue neutral, we have no idea. So it's a nice thing to think about, but you have no, we don't know what the number could be. It could be 50 and it could be 500, and anything in between. And I have a feeling that there's a lot of people that are going to want to continue this service, okay? There's a lot of people, 80% of the people in this township have no idea this conversation is even taking place. As much as we like to think people are reading the paper and watching us on TV, 80% of the people have no idea that this conversation is even taking place. And in my ward, there's a lot of steep driveways and a lot of problems, and it's going to be a big problem. And it's going to cause a lot of issues and a lot of concerns. And for that reason, I've been opposed to this from day one. I've given many suggestions as to what we can do budget-wise to save this $200,000 or $250,000 that we're going to save this $250,000 to change Radnor's landscape forever.
370, I don't know why I keep saying 250.
The 275 is the number that I came up with. That after all the gyrations, it's 4 people basically.
The number was 570.
It's 4 people.
We
But
did
anyway,
200,
Bill,
it's 370.
it's $275,000, and
What, John or Bill, what's the number?
I think
it's 4 people. He just told me $70,000 apiece.
No,
4
it's 9
people.
part-timers, it's more than that.
I have the, I
Hold
have,
that.
hold
No,
on,
we didn't.
I have the
No, we
calculations in
But
front of me.
whatever, the number is irrelevant to me at this point
It's
because you guys have already
543.
made up your mind what you want to do. I'm just telling you that I have no intention of supporting the budget with this in there because I think it's a mistake. And I've had some very intelligent people that have been around Radnor for a long time come in here and tell me that this is a mistake and agree with me. And I think a lot of people have no idea that this is coming, and I think it's a mistake. And we can all agree to disagree, but I don't believe that it's the right thing to do. And I look at it as changing the landscape of Radnor forever and making us like everybody else, which we've never been, and quite frankly, I don't think we ever wanted to be. So I have no intention of supporting the budget with this in there. And if you're looking to find a magic number that's going to make this revenue neutral, I think we're just guessing, John. Not, with all due respect, I just don't think we're going to be able to come up.
No, I understand that, but let me just say in business that if you're going to propose a new service, you always want to know where that break-even number is. You want to know what the magic number is. And look, we may not know that exactly, but I think it's important to go through the numbers. And by the way, Enrique, I agree with you that if everyone does want this service and they all pay $350, we raise $2.6 million, which basically puts us back in a very good position.
Yeah,
Next
you're
year,
also
the
raising
year
everybody's
after, the year
taxes
after.
11% too. I mean, and the people with the long driveways have big tax bills. Okay, you're just pouring more on top of them, and I'm not comfortable with it. I've given many suggestions what we could do, and you guys, this is what you want to do, but I have no intention of voting for a budget to raise taxes 11% and eliminate rear yard trash pickup.
Seems to me like it's a good compromise for now, and next year we'll be monitoring it. And if it's gone sour, we'll have to take further action. I drove around my ward on a couple trash days, and in my ward, the number's probably closer to 90% that put their trash out at the curb. So I don't see why.
You'll find out the first day that it doesn't get picked up. I'll tell you that. You'll find out. Okay? Yes, Sarah?
Kevin, you were looking for a model for, supposedly you went to scholarships, and I'd like to offer what the Ardmore Y does. You fill out an application, you write a letter, and you include your Schedule 1040 of your income tax. If you fall below a certain level, then you're eligible for a reduced fee. If your income goes up, then you're not eligible for a fee. So that's how you find the people on fixed income.
I would just add to what Sarah's just indicated. Previously, I had suggested the department circulating an affidavit relative to physical disability. Sarah's just mentioned how the financial qualification would be worked in. I think that would be a way of gleaning out the individuals who would fall into both of those categories. That is, someone who doesn't have the financial wherewithal to meet the user fee, and has no one in the household with the physical ability to carry it out. And I would suggest that with those two requirements being vetted, that number would be relatively low. I think what John Fisher is trying to accomplish, it sounds like we very well might be able to realize. It sounds like from what Mr. Hagan's indicated is if the subscription level is low, he can do this using existing personnel and trucks, and therefore we're actually looking at a positive cash flow out of a low subscription. Likewise, Mr. Granger indicated if the subscription level approaches 300, then it would be self-sustaining from the standpoint of adding manpower or additional trucks at that level. I think the scary area might be between those two situations in which we are not necessarily going to be able to fine-tune, at least in its first year of operation, a revenue-neutral situation. But would suggest that if we've got to tell some people you signed up too late and your neighbor got their application in first, and therefore so that this doesn't negatively impact taxpayers, we had to cut the number of offerings of this off. I'd be up for that too. Anything to attempt as we move forward and fine tune this operation to approach what Mr. Fisher has indicated, that this being revenue neutral. It sounds like this all sounds like a good start to that.
Good evening, guys. My name is Mike Simmons, President of the Employee Association. I spoke to you a few weeks back about the trash service, and I understand the weight of what we're at right now. If this was to happen in the way it looks like it's going to happen by going curbside, it's going to affect actually 11 people, or including the 7 part-time guys that really work the same amount of hours. They just don't get benefits and that the other employees receive. I spoke to you before about trying to grin and bear it and get through it by our men doing it with just our men and losing that amount, which is, I don't know what the amount of the 7 part-timers is. It's probably like $150,000 for the year or whatever it is, including their compensation or whatever for injury. But I think it really is, looking at it, the level of services we provide have always been the backbone, like I said before, of what Radnor does. The trash, the snow removal, the road repair, the sewer work, the sign maintenance, it all comes together. And I really think losing this service and just, I know we're in a tight budget situation. We're willing to work with you and trying to get through this next year or two till things get better. But I really think losing that trash service, which is the backbone of what Radnor's about, is a mistake. I really think if we could just get through it by our men doing it without the part-time help, even if we take men from other departments, I think we could make it. And I even looked at the numbers, really. If you asked every resident in this township to pay $2 a week, it would actually, in a year worth, it would actually cover the service itself. The budget gap, if I'm not, I may be wrong with my numbers. But I really think that this would be a sad state of affairs, because I think the estimate of the amount of homes that don't bring it down is more like 45% probably. That's only my own opinion from driving around and working here for 21 years. But I think that if you go curbside, which you probably will, that you're going to have a lot more response to your fee if that's what you're looking for. Thanks, guys. Thank you for all your efforts.
Anna Marie Hessman, Rosemont. I would just like to comment on this curbside issue. I was really kind of pleasantly surprised when I moved back to Radnor, having grown up here but not really been responsible for the trash growing up. After living various places in the world, all of which have curbside or staff. You either have to take out your own trash or you have to pay someone to do it. And I understand that we have some people in the community who don't have good support from their neighbors, their friends, their family, or can't get that support. And it sounds like there's some really good ideas that people brought to Kevin in response to that question. But I'm just really kind of shocked to hear how much is coming forth in support of this when we have so many really vital services we have to cut. I was very pleasantly surprised when someone brought my trash one day when I forgot to bring it from the side of my house, but I'm used to being responsible for my own trash, and I'm certainly not going to be funding someone who has a driveway that's 10 times mine because they need that. You know, it's really, I'm definitely not in favor of paying for that for myself. I'm not in favor of paying for it for someone else, and I think that the idea that has come forward today about fee-based services is good as long as the township doesn't have to subsidize it, because I really feel that I don't think we should have a number out there before it is costed properly and is budget neutral, as John says. I think it has to be assessed properly and pay for itself. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Procedurally, at this point,
Can we vote on the amendment that I introduced,
okay,
which is just the 350 fee, it's an addition, so can we vote on that?
yeah, if that's the way you want to do it.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded.
Okay, all those in favor of Mr. Spingler's amendment for the $350 revenue addition to the budget, say aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I have a question. I don't think it needs to be part of the budget resolution, but I would like John and the folks to pick up on some of the suggestions tonight as to find a objective way to address those folks who don't have the financial resources, don't have the physical ability to do that. Because we really shouldn't be burdening those people. They have enough on their plate already. And there's enough subsidies on many other things in this township.
The other part of this budget that we have to amend and do at the same time is to add a motion to go below the 12% balance. So I would move that part of this budget, we vote to go below the 12%
Fund balance
fund
policy?
balance that we're required by ordinance to maintain. And if we don't want to maintain it, we have to have a motion voted on by 5 commissioners to deviate from that and go into the 12%. So I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll discuss it briefly. I mentioned this before, that the fund balance policy, the whole purpose of that policy is to ensure that we have adequate funding in our account for the rainy day. Well, the rainy day's here, and we've been drawing down on that. We started out with about $6.5 million last year, and by the end of this year, by the end of this month, in fact, we'll have spent about $3 million of that, $3.5 million of that. And I'm willing to support this motion only because I think we've really worked hard all year. The staff have worked very hard all year cutting expenses. We went from having a $26 million budget down to a $22 million budget in the last 3 years. So we've cut a lot of expenses. And I think we have a lot more to cut, but not in lieu of services. So I'll support this motion. But I will, again, this is the last time I will say in 2009, that I will caution that we may run out of money in the first quarter of 2011, because in the first quarter of 2011, we enter that year with a $1.7 million fund balance. And as demonstrated tonight, we can spend between $1 and $2 or even $4 million in a given month. And we need to make sure that we have enough revenues in that first quarter of 2011. So we either bet on a good economic recovery next year, or we continue to find ways to cut spending and increase or enhance revenues.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Well, I'm going to wrap up. But that said, in order to get that fund balance, in order to make cash flow work in 2011, we're either looking at that full economic recovery, or we're looking at a TRAN or tax revenue anticipation note of probably $4 to $5 million. Now, in the past, we've borrowed about $1 million in a given year to offset the expenses in the first quarter, and that comes at a great cost. It generally costs $70,000 to $100,000 to borrow that money. But I think, given the economic climate in 2011, that we can expect the cost of borrowing that money to be much higher, because we will have virtually no fund balance, and therefore our bond rating will be less than it is now. So I think we have to be very careful next year heading into 2010, and we have to be very cautious. Even though we're budgeting for certain expenses, we may even consider not approving those expenses throughout the year. And if there are certain capital expenses that make sense now, we may want to reconsider that next year. We also have the opportunity to reopen the budget in the first 45 days of 2010 in the event that we've realized that we've made a mistake tonight. But I just want to make sure that everyone understands that we passed this budget tonight at 11% tax increase, but we're looking for another 11 to 15% tax increase in 2011 if the economy doesn't recover, or we have to cut spending. So I hope next year we'll have a new budget committee in place. We'll have a lot of people thinking on this issue. And hopefully what we'll get to is a place where we can cut spending where we need to, with not adversely affecting the services and the quality of life that we enjoy. So I support it.
I don't know if this question is better directed at Karen, Bill, or John. But the fund balance doesn't directly equate to our cash in the bank, correct?
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded, and
By passing Bill's motion, does that mean we're authorizing you guys to draw it all the way down to zero, or would this motion establish a new benchmark that we would have to come back to the board to approve a further diminution of the fund balance? So is this carte blanche or
I'll
what?
speak to that. Maybe we'll get John also. The ordinance doesn't specify that if we are enacting a budget with a 2/3 vote, that we in fact have to set a new benchmark or a new minimal fund balance level. But it's important to realize that the budget is in fact what limits us from exceeding our expenses. So if we are approving a budget with a 7.1% fund balance at the end of 2010, then we can't spend more money than has been budgeted throughout the year. So in effect, if all goes well, we should maintain that fund balance. However, if there's an emergency or some need to spend money, the board would have to vote on that anyway. So I don't know if that answers the question. John Granger, do you want to comment on that as well?
No, I think it's well said. The estimate is the fund balance next year will be around 7% this time next year. Unless, nobody sells a house. That's really what's going to drive this budget. So I would expect it to be somewhere between 7% and 9% by the end of the year.
the ordinance also addresses that.
The ordinance also requires you to replenish the fund balance within 2 years of the date. So by 12/31/12, the fund balance should be 12% again, at a minimum.
And just, because I have to have it in front of me, the ordinance says that in any year in which the general fund balance actually falls below 12%, the fund balance shall be budgeted to replenish the target no later than the second budget following said shortfall through any combination of expenditure cuts and/or tax and/or other fee increases. So,
Next year would be the first year it would fall below 12%,
Yeah,
so you'd have until 2012 to increase it up to 12%.
And if it happens again,
It'll happen.
Can't speak from the audience without.
He
going
said
to
if
the
it
mic.
happens again?
Right.
Well, can I just comment? I mean, this is why I put out there that we're looking at a tax increase or significant spending cuts for 2011 budget, which will be the next board's prerogative. The point is that because of that requirement of 2-year funding, that we would in fact need to raise taxes just to try to get that fund balance back up to its correct level. But if you look at it, the 2012 projection, and this is, there's a very low degree of certainty with these numbers because we're going out so far, but we're starting the year, we're ending 2011 with a $500,000 fund balance, and we're ending 2012 with a $739,000 deficit. So we're going in the complete opposite direction of what a fund balance wants you to do. But if we hadn't had the fund balance, we'd be in really deep trouble. And it was the hard work of the board and the staff and the township and the good fortune of the economy that put us in the position to have the money in the first place. So I'm not going to pretend that we're not using this money for a good reason, but I think we also have to be cognizant of where we're headed. And we need to be very cognizant of spending this year, coming up, and the following year, because I don't think we need to keep raising taxes. I think we need to look at the spending first.
Okay.
Could we vote on that
Yeah,
amendment to make it part of the budget?
The amendment has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay.
Now I'd like to move the approval of the ordinance, the budget ordinance with the tax levy for 2009-33.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, next, Resolution 2009-37.
Kevin's going to handle.
Let
Capital.
me get myself reorganized. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Resolution 2009-37. It's the proposed capital improvement plan for the years 2010 to 2014. Although the agenda says 2012, the document is through 2014, so
Yeah, I will change that to 14.
It's a five-year capital budget. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll move the approval of the resolution 2010 to 2014.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to clarify two things. My first one is a question. We still will have the opportunity, and again, I'm 99% positive my answer, but I want it stated, that we will still have the opportunity to approve each of these projects on an individual basis throughout the year.
Yes.
The second item is something that a resident called me about, and Dan, I appreciate you giving him the heads up, but the township has a long-standing legal obligation to Mr. Summers regarding, I guess, some kind of maintenance of his creek bed or repair of his creek bed. And we've consistently pushed that out. It's not in here. He claims that the situation, every time we push out, it deteriorates a little bit. So if there was something we could do to perhaps address that using internal resources as opposed to external resources, maybe we can look into that, so that it doesn't become such a difficult situation that the cost becomes astronomical for us to address the situation.
Okay. Any new public comment on this before we vote on it? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
All right, the next item on the agenda is the Resolution 2009-38 and the 2010 Salary Administration Plan.
Move it be approved. Well, where do we get
Is there a second?
Where do we get a
Second.
All right, okay, any board discussion?
Yeah, I have a question and a comment. And John, this is more of an operational issue than policy. Historically, the way it's been managed, as I understand it, is the proposed increase has been done across the board equally, as opposed to a pool of what is here proposed 4%, and John may get 5% because John does an outstanding job, and Mary may get 3% because Mary does a less than outstanding job. It is...
Union contract.
They're union contracts.
No, I'm looking at the last one. I'm not looking at the union. I'm looking at the supervisory and all other full-time civilian employees. I understand that the first two are union contracts. That is not, the third item on here, actually the fourth item, is that union or non-union?
It's non-union. The You're correct. That's typically the way it should be addressed. And the budget provides funding for a pay classification study, and we will also prepare a personnel evaluation program to be included, but it won't be effective until this time next year. And it'll be tied in with the goals and objectives of the board. Just wasn't enough opportunity to do it this year.
And while I haven't looked at this in a month or two, just so folks understand, from the period of September 2007 to the period of September 2009, on an absolute basis, the consumer price index went up 3.6%, not on a compounded annual growth rate, but on an absolute basis. So 4% is modestly above the consumer price increase. Now, I know there's some history about people kicking in more for their health care and things like that, but I think the 4% is a reasonable proposal, but I think our long-term goal should be that the pool approximates the consumer price index.
Yes, that's generally what happens.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and looks like a citizen would like to comment on this portion of the agenda.
Regarding that particular classification of employees, my recollection last budget year was that at the suggestion of Mr. Spengler, since he got a 5.5% increase in his Social Security, he argued that 4.0% was reasonable and below what he wanted us to believe was the cost of the CPI standard at the time. Everyone is aware that there are no increases to Social Security recipients this year because the effective CPI is actually a negative number. I would suggest that regarding that particular category of employee, that this board reduce that figure to zero as it's done with its management employees, particularly during this tough economic time. I suggest that with rising health care costs and other benefits and the difficulty obtaining similar employment, that I don't think we're going to lose any good people over that group of non-union employees having a static income for this particular budget year.
But they also had they did not get raises in 09 as well, correct? So that would be 2 years.
So be it.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Hello, Jim Schneller again, St. David's Park. Are you discussing the salary administration
Yes.
plan?
Yes.
I have to object. I mean, there's been statements about the cost cutting that's been going on, but I've repeatedly seen suggestions from the public ignored. And I know that other townships aren't giving raises or are giving small raises or part raise, part furloughs, and I see across the board 4%. And I just wonder if this is wise planning. We've just been told that there's a feasible 11% tax increase. Again, we have huge doubts about the budget. We really might be looking at a large deficit. So I want to encourage that the board take a hard look at that. And I guess a looming question I have is, why is the salary and the capital expenditure plans listed after the overall budget and tax levy? Are we working backwards? I mean, as far as the agenda is concerned. Isn't the ultimate budget and tax levy contingent on these two?
I think it's always done in separate resolutions. I don't know if Mr. Granger or the solicitor want to address.
I think his point is actually a fair one.
It's a fair one. Well, the capital budget is a separate budget, number one, okay? It's a separate budget. It has nothing to do with the other budget. And the salary administration plan is, these are two union contracts at the top, which we don't have a choice.
Right.
He's not quite, it's a sequencing issue, because
I think Mr. Granger wants to
he's kind
address
of right.
this.
They're related but separate issues. I mean, the budget sets the general parameters, the salary schedule sets specifics. And usually, the the salary schedule is in line with the budget, and that's what
You
occurs
just said
here.
usually.
Usually.
Is it in line?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how it's used, the salary schedule is used to prepare the budget.
I reacted very specifically to your
Right.
choice of wording. The
Yes.
salary plan in front of us.
Salary plan
is consistent
is
with what's in our budget.
Identical to what's in the budget.
Thank you.
I'll comment also, this year is earlier this year was the first year we ever published the human resource schedules, and that is basically what everyone is paid in this township. I'm going to recommend that we do that in the beginning, the first quarter of next year. Not because, well, quite frankly, just to make everything as transparent as we can. And there's no other reason to explain it. I do want to, I think the only comment I'll make here is that because of the union contracts, we don't have any negotiation on those two numbers unless we want to open up those contracts, or try to, and that's very difficult. However, the 4% increase in supervisory and all exempt non-union employees is actually a very small pool of people at this point. And dollar for dollar, it's a very small amount. So if you look at the total cost of all this, from what I've looked at, it ends up being a pretty small number.
But that's been the problem all along, and when you look at these feasible predictions of 10% tax increase, that's just to give a general feeling for what could, and it's not necessarily a worst-case situation. You're going to be looking at these details anyway, and we're going to be looking back at 2009 saying, we should have done this a year earlier. I don't think that attrition, there's been wonderful attrition, but that's stopgap. And I don't think there's any bad reflection on the staff if they get a lower increase. I mean, Americans chip in, and everybody should be happy to take a little bit of a bite because times are tough.
They chip in by taking the trash out front.
The issue doesn't amuse me. So please consider something. And it's wonderful that the budget is amendable for 40 days.
Move the second.
Okay. With regard to the Resolution 2009-38, the Salary Administration Plan, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the appointment of the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee, and I believe Bill has the list, or Tom?
Hank has the list, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Who's got the list?
Tom?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay.
You want to read the name?
Yes. Sarah Armstrong, Robert Boehringer, Nicholas Kemp, Jerry Linder, Craig Wieland, Philip Wilson, Robert Murdaka, and Chris Watson.
I'll move their appointment.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Hold on, did we finalize the mission statement and goals of this committee? Is that something we plan to do tonight? We've just appointed some people
What
to.
we have on the agenda is the appointment. I think the mission statement is still a work in progress.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda does not have a resolution number attached to it, but it is a resolution to open an escrow account for the monies that have been granted under the Willows Cottage Energy Grant. So I'm not exactly sure.
Kevin, the state requires that we have a separate individual interest-bearing account for the funds associated with this grant.
Are we passing Resolution 2009-39? Are we-
40.
40.
Okay, I am missing something.
2009-40, right?
That's, okay.
I'll move the approval of the resolution.
Second.
Any discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes finance and audit.
Nothing on library.
Personnel administration,
No report?
park and rec.
One thing on the agenda for tonight is the announcement of the 2010 Park and Recreation Winter and Spring Activity Brochure. As usual, our outstanding Park and Rec staff has put together their activity brochure for the spring and the winter, and it's filled with things for young and old, healthy, not so healthy, and everything in between. Some great travel events and just all kinds of great things available at the schools as well as here at the Township building. And if you want one mailed to you, you can call the Park and Rec, and they'll be happy to mail one to you. And it's filled with great activities for all the Radnor residents this spring and winter. That's it.
Okay. Public health?
Just want to announce that the school district did conduct its H1N1 immunization over the weekend, and I wanted to thank Amy Wishner, a member of the Board of Health, for volunteering her time, along with all the other volunteers. Apparently, probably about 100 volunteers were part of that process. And I want to thank the school district for hosting that event. And from what I hear, about 700 children from the K through 12 did receive immunizations. And apparently there was an excess of supply, so we certainly met the demand.
I just wanted to comment on that. I went over to the Radnor Elementary School Sunday morning with my daughter and got her lined up, and the person who waited on us was Linda Grobman, who was the superintendent of schools. She was there all 3 days, the entire time, from what I understand. So from the highest levels down, people were pitching in. So a lot of appreciation should go out to the school board and school staff for doing that.
No further report?
Okay, public safety,
No report.
public works and engineering.
We're not announcing 2 vacancies on the planning commission because under new business, I'm going to move the appointment of 2 individuals.
Okay. Old business? New business?
New business, I would like to, first of all, move the appointment of Peter Craig to the balance of a term. He's our alternate on the zoning hearing board. He's been serving on the zoning hearing board, filling in. And I would like to, first of all, move for his appointment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then I would next like to move that Noah Cutler be appointed as the alternate.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And for the planning commission, I would like to move that Walter Kunda is appointed to, pardon me? Well, after I make the motion, you can. That Walter Kunda be appointed to the balance of the term of Don Curley, and I would move that Susan Stern be appointed to a full term.
Do we have a second on those?
Second.
Second?
Okay, public comment?
Can I ask if, please, if I could go back a step, but please tell me not to.
Don't go back a
Don't
step.
go back a step.
With the appointment of any board member in the full position, in other words, someone's moving into the,
Unexpired term, the difference between the two.
no, I'm thinking of the positions for alternate. Is that a transparent process? Does that go
The
before?
way it's been done for years, Jim.
Yeah, way we do it is we appoint someone to alternate, and then if a vacancy occurs, we usually move the alternate up to the full position, and then, because they've been serving only when needed, they sit in on every meeting, but they don't have a vote unless a member's missing, and then we move them up, and then we appoint a new person to the alternate position. That's the way we've done it for the last 10, 15 years.
And it's only on the zoning hearing board it has an alternate. None of the other boards have it.
So I'm wondering then that Mr. Cutler was, applications were requested.
Yes.
Excuse me for asking, but I don't notice everything.
Yeah.
And are you filling the 2 positions on the planning commission now?
Yes.
Because I thought the deadline was not until the end of the year.
Well, this is the end of the year. We don't meet again.
I just presented my credentials.
Oh, well, we're interviewing right now. We know you. We understand. Thank you for applying.
No, seriously, I think I should be
No.
considered more because I just presented it to Mr. Martin just now.
Yeah, well, as I said, we're not accepting anymore. We're not accepting anymore. We've been announcing this for 3 or 4 weeks now, 3 or 4 meetings now. We've been announcing these vacancies.
Well, what does the agenda say?
Announcement of 2 vacancies on the planning commission beginning January 1st, and I said we're not acting on that because we're going to appoint 2 people. We interviewed, and we have 2 people that we've agreed that it would be outstanding members of the planning commission.
Excuse me, I had time until this meeting to present my credentials.
Yeah.
Am I ahead of time? Are
No,
these
this
2
is-
more vacancies?
No, this announcement is just an announcement. There's no rule we have to follow. We can appoint whenever we want. We could have appointed them last month if we wanted to. We want to get them on board so that they're ready to serve at the beginning of the year, and we're doing that this evening.
Yeah, but once you've put it in the agenda, you've shown the public that you want more applications.
But now we're telling you we don't want more applications.
Well, I object.
Okay,
I
thank
object
you.
that the board can't take 5 minutes to read it. So let someone make copies and.
Actually, we've been interviewing applicants for this position for months. Yeah, there are 25 people that have applied to positions in the township boards and commissions.
All right, well, let me say this. At the last meeting, there was no mention that this meeting would be a vote. So not only was that leading anticipatorily to further applications, but then this month's agenda, this meeting's agenda says announcement of. So if you give notice, live up to it.
He's got a point.
Well, we could,
You should probably
And
wait
I'm-
until the next meeting to
Yeah,
vote, and you should consider all of them, but that's one man's opinion.
Yeah, I'm happy to,
yeah, I'm okay, if. we
hold
can-
off on this
We
and
can do
let
this
Mr.
January
Schneller come in.
4th, and we already made it clear who the people will be, and we'll just reaffirm those appointments. However,
Well,
I
maybe
hope
someone
not.
comes in the interim that wows you over, and
That's
maybe we'll
right,
put them
and-
on there.
and
Gotta
that's
give an
right, and-
opportunity.
that's right, and I think we will take a look at your resume and consider you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any potential issue with somebody who's consistently suing the township, being
That's-
on one of the boards?
That's a good point, too.
That's a policy matter for the board to decide when they're making their appointment. I would just remind you that it won't be the same board sitting here in January that actually interviewed the candidates, and that's also a policy issue that you have to keep in mind when you're deciding the timing of the vote.
Also, if I could set the record straight, there's no truth to the designation of me as someone who's consistently suing the township. There were 4 or 5 tremendously important land use decisions that came down, and they culminated with a woman who demolished her house with supposed approval from a zoning manager who left within a month of that time.
Mr. Schneller, these matters are still in litigation, correct?
Their litigation.
Okay, I don't think we
If
should
I
be
was
discussing them in
represented by an
public meeting.
attorney,
Well,
comments
we'll-
like that wouldn't be made.
You can come back at public comment and bring that up. Right now-
Anyway, I
Jim,
don't want to
can you-
end on that
Can you
note.
just clarify which, you're applying for zoning hearing board?
No, for planning commission.
Planning.
And I certainly am prepared to explain to the township and to the board especially my actions, and I think you know they're reasonable actions, and they have nothing to do with the township or objections to the township per se.
I would suggest to the board that it is not appropriate to engage in a discussion with a litigant at a public meeting as to a matter of pending litigation.
Well, John Rice says completely opposite at every meeting. He said he can speak.
no.
I'm not
No,
gonna-
that's
She
not
didn't
what
say
she
you, it was
said.
us.
No,
What?
She's
We
telling
shouldn't
us not to
discuss.
engage.
Okay, all right.
So I regret the fact that I may have a persona as someone who sued too much, but I think on the issues by issues, it would simply be I could explain in 10 minutes, if the board doesn't already know, that I was simply concerned about the appearance of the town.
Well, at this point, I don't think it's appropriate to talk about it. The only question is whether the board is going to hold off on making these 2 appointments on the planning commission to consider your application, which was submitted today. Is that right?
Yes.
So what's the board want to do?
That's fine. I'll withdraw my motion.
Let's just do it on the 4th.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
No, I'll just withdraw my motion, that's all.
Okay,
So,
all right. Then that's what we'll do. Okay. Any other public participation?
Well, that wasn't public participation, that was new business. We didn't get the
You're right.
participation yet.
You're right.
I have new business.
Okay.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank Tom Masterson and Enrique Hervada for serving the township for many years. This is apparently your last public meeting tonight. We did pass the budget. If we didn't pass the budget, we were going to keep these guys around another week, but we were able to get that done. So I want really my heartfelt thanks to both you gentlemen for serving on the board for many years. And many times it is thankless. It doesn't pay well, and it can be very difficult, but we don't agree often, both ways. But I appreciate your service to the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I certainly appreciate Mr. Fisher's sentiments, and I'd just like to take a moment. I've been a commissioner now for 9 years. I was elected 3 times, and I'm very proud of the time that I served here as a commissioner here in Radnor. As he mentioned, it's not always an easy job. What it really does that people don't realize, it takes a lot of time, specifically away from your family, and you miss certain things that you'd like to be at. So as much as I've enjoyed it and I've learned a lot and met a lot of people and hopefully have done some good, I'm looking forward to spending time. I want to specifically thank my wife, Jennifer, and my 2 sons, Chris and Jake, who were very supportive all through my 9 years as a commissioner. I'd also like to thank the staff here, whereas this last year or so has not been pleasant, and it has been a real drain on me personally, as everyone else on this board. But it was something difficult that we all went through together, and Radnor will be just as strong as it ever was when we get through this. We have a tremendous staff here, from the part-time people to the full-time guys to the managers, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for everybody who works for this township and has worked for the township in its history. It's a special place, and I've lived here my whole life, and I'm very pleased to call it my home. And I can only hope that, in some way that I help to give back a little bit, but that's not really for me to decide that if I did a good job or not. It's really for others to decide. But the thing that makes Radnor so great is that there's a lot of people that will give back. And to me, it doesn't really matter if you're a commissioner or you work for the school district. It's somebody who gives back. You could be a crossing guard. You could manage the Cub Scout pack. You could be assistant soccer coach on your team. It doesn't matter. There's an endless list of people in Radnor that give back to this community. And it's really a special place. And everybody gives back what they can. And some of us spend more time at it than others. But everybody gives back what they can. It really makes it a special place. And it's really been a pleasure to serve with everybody on this board, as well as previous commissioners who sat up here and the ones that led the way. And I certainly appreciate everyone's kind words and kind wishes. And I'm sure Radnor will be fine in spite of all the bad press and all the troubles that we've had in the last year and a half. Radnor will be fine. It'll still be one of the finest communities in the country, in my opinion, to live in. And I'm proud to call it my home, and I'm proud to have served as a commissioner in Radnor.
I don't really have anything more to add. I think Enrique said it all. I've been on the board 6 years. This year felt like 10, but unfortunately things had to be done that were done. I took no pleasure in it, and I'm hopeful and confident that the board and the township are going to move in a very positive direction in the next year and in the years to come. And I am honored to have served on the board, and I appreciate all the support that was provided to me during this difficult year. And I will support the future boards. If anybody needs any information or help from me, I'm happy to help. So thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, I move we adjourn. Oh, no, I forgot. Yes, come on up.
Could I please- Jim Schneller, St. David's Park. Could I please ask the board the status of the charcoal broiled pizza application for liquor license transfer?
I guess it was put off till
It's under consideration.
next year, right?
Yep.
Could I please remind the board that there was a loose ends were left as far as whether last hearing session was an actual hearing or not. I believe that there is hearing time scheduled again. I think because the issues were raised and the board decided to table this, that the public participation hadn't been completed. People were left without talking.
As I recall, the public hearing on the intermunicipal transfer was closed, and we said that when it comes up for a vote, there'll be an opportunity for public comment again at that particular time, just like there is with every agenda item.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Going.
Forgive me, Bill. I just want to once again,
Thank us for Garrett Hill one more time.
I'm not going to thank you for Garrett Hill. I'm not going to thank you for Garrett Hill, but I'm going to tell you how much I have grown to admire all of you and the township staff over these 2 years. And I hope I'm one of these people that maybe have given them a little bit back. And once again, thank you and best wishes.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Second.
We're adjourned.